So Akunwafor. I'm a senior at Maggie Walker, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia.
Robinette Cross. I am one of the Global Studies teachers here at Maggie Walker.
I'm Michelle G. I'm a senior and I'm from Charles City County.
I'm Angelique Banks. I am in ninth grade and I'm from Chesterfield County.
My name is Joy Cobb and I'm the sophomore junior counselor at Maggie Walker.
I'm Jennifer Starks. I'm a junior and I'm from Petersburg.
What clubs or organizations are you a part of at Maggie Walker?
Here at Maggie Walker, I'm mainly part of Peer Mentors. It's a club for underrepresented minorities, and I'm also a member of National Spanish Honor Society and National Honor Society, and that's it.
I'm currently a part of robotics and GSA.
What made you decide to attend Maggie Walker?
Well, I did realize that it was a good school, so I wanted to get a really good academic for sports too, because that would be easier for scholarships and stuff, while also having good grades and then being like a smart person, you know.
I don't know, it was kind of like here or my county that's like really underfunded, so we couldn't do a lot of the stuff I would be able to do at Maggie Walker.
How would you compare your experience as a student to your experience as a Black person?
I mean, as a student, I am, still a student here, as a Black person here. It is a little isolating because, having mostly white friends and mostly, I guess just white school, it's kind of, yeah.
As a student, it's kind of different, but like, you kind of get treated a little bit different as a Black student here. So they'll ask you questions, they'll be like, so people would think that I skipped class, but it kind of feels like it's kind of racially motivated in a way, but it's like not on purpose, because there's not many people who hang around Black people, so they typically don't know what to say. So they'll be like, oh, did you do this? I'll be like, nah, I'm not like that. I'm not like the type of person to get in fights and like get thieves. Whereas in person, in my actual real life, I don't really go through that as much because I'm around with people of my skin color more, so it's kind of easier.
It's, as a Black person, it's never like outright like being called slurs or stuff. It'll be like little things that kind of just build up over time to like make you like, I guess I would call it imposter syndrome. Just like little stuff, little comments, or just behaviors where you're like kind of ignore stuff when it comes to like administration, namely, but a lot of other students where it just like feels like maybe you don't deserve to be here, like maybe you're not as intelligent as the rest of your peers. Like one thing I remember is like sitting in my chemistry class sophomore year, and it was just like, I wasn't necessarily good at chemistry, but like I would be able to like work hard at it and like figure out the right answer for stuff. And like whenever I would say it, I would just get like completely ignored at my table, and all the other people sitting with me were white. And like when stuff like that happens, you kind of like can't help but feel like you don't belong,
Well, as a student, I would say it was pretty typical, as in it being stressful for like almost every kid here, and having a challenging workload. As a Black person, especially my freshman year, it did feel a little bit alienating, as it was a culture shock for me coming from a majority Black middle school to a majority white high school.
Were you expecting more when it comes to the diversity at the school?
Well, coming into Maggie Walker, I wasn't really expecting much in terms of diversity because I knew it wasn't really a school that had a large underrepresented minority population. Now I do kind of expect more.
To be honest, I knew what it was when I came in here, man. Because I did shadow day, and even though like my shadow, like the upperclassman, was Black, kind of hard to not have that happen at Charles City. But walking around, it was like a very stark difference for my county. Like, went from my middle school, like my classes where it wouldn't be uncommon to have like only one white student in the class, to like just being the only Black student in the class.
What are some of the challenges that you face at Maggie Walker as a Black student?
There are a lot of times where there are like certain teachers and things where they'll say something kind of insensitive or just moments where a teacher will start speaking as if, there's only one race in the room, and then they'll start saying like kind of weird things. It's not fun.
I think that some of the challenges that I faced as a black student would be just the reputation of a black person in general. So where I am a LGBTQ people of color, I have dreads, and you typically don't see that in school. So it's kind of like being a standout person. You kind of have to get what comes with it. So I get a lot of looks, I get extra attention from teachers. They're always talking to me more, on me more, because that's just the attention that I attract.
I think not seeing yourself in like your peers kind of does take a toll on you. And even like without students, like with administration stuff, like, because freshman year I did go to counseling a lot because it wasn't really like hard adjustment. Just like having to go to counseling and like explain my situation, like explain why I was feeling the way I was basically doing counseling for myself, because I would have to like sit there and analyze everything to figure out a way to explain my experience as a student at Maggie Walker to counseling.
Well, most of my challenges came when I was younger, like in freshman year, just trying to get assimilated into the school culture and then finding out it wasn't really for me. Just things like that. Also, a lot of times some students will make ignorant comments and you will hear like the occasional N-word, and that would make you a little bit uncomfortable.
How many years have you worked at Maggie Walker?
This is my 8th year.
With those 8 years of seeing students enter or graduate, I'm sure you've assisted a wide range of students with adjusting to high school. What have you learned from your experience as a teacher about the difficulties that Black students at Maggie Walker face?
Those difficulties are enormous. It's very hard for some of our students because they don't see enough teachers who look like them. And even though at the time Dr. Williams was the head of the English department, she's now one of the administrators, there were 2 educators, and then there's Mrs. Cobb in counseling. We're all women, and so there's a gap in African American men and their presence in education at the school. So it's really hard for them. It was also, they are happy to be here, but they also felt like people judged them, including their peers and other educators, for the color of their skin, the location from which they were bused, and the access that they had. So they made the best of what they had. They used us as a safe space for them, as a haven for them, and we were all too happy, and I still am all too happy to help fortify them along this journey, because they have every right to be here just like anybody else.
How has your experience been as one of very few Black staff members working in a predominantly white high school?
In some ways, I tell my students a lot of the same similarities that, that you might face. I think the difference is, when it comes with, if you may be getting those things from teachers, where it's not the power dynamic of being a student or a teacher. For me, it's, we're adults. But it's definitely been a challenge. I think the same way students kind of feel when you kind of gravitate, when you see a face that's familiar and you kind of like gravitate towards that face for a safe space. I know I definitely have done that here, and it's been kind of my safe spaces or my network that has definitely helped with those challenging times. But definitely still as an adult, navigating, like I said, microaggressions and learning how to educate people, not being seen as, the angry Black woman, but explaining or trying to educate to kind of say, that was offensive, and this is why. That this might be offensive, or just using my position to try to speak up for not just the Black students, but the students of color or other kind of marginalized groups, just making sure that they feel included and they can see themselves in the school.
No one really challenges my intellect, if that makes sense. No one really challenges whether or not I am smart enough to teach students. They question more so who I am because of what I can do. That was the initial thing. Things have gotten better, for sure, as the years have progressed, but the questioning of who I am. And this has all come through students to me. So there was an element of cowardice because there have been circumventing discussions about who I am. But I also don't think that it was necessarily malicious. I think that it's privilege that causes people to feel like they have the ability or the authority to ask certain questions or to make certain assumptions.
But I think it starts with education for the staff and for the faculty, where we are, you become more aware of different cultural groups. You have a better understanding and appreciation for, what makes us different. And I think that's so important when you are working with, young people, because you have to understand where they're coming from. We know, different cultures have different maybe communication styles, or there's certain rules with communication that if you're aware of those things, it helps you better understand that person and maybe see where they're coming from and communicating with them. But I think it really does start with educating the adults about, and I think, we even talked about even understanding for instance, you're out in, King and Queen. What is the experience like for a student coming all the way from King and Queen? You know what I mean? Like, you're dealing with something that a student lives just down the street is not having to deal with. And how can that impact your experience here in the classroom, things like that. But I think we really, as the adults, we have to stop and kind of examine ourselves and kind of see what are my biases that I have, or what are my stereotypes that when I see a student I automatically go with, and how can I correct that? Because it definitely does come across when you're interacting with somebody, different experience from yours.
Previously, some Black students have been treated differently or pointed out in class when discussing touchy topics such as slavery and discrimination. Some teachers even have made jokes about Black students. How should students go about addressing issues as such that make them uncomfortable?
Well, in the words of Jay-Z, bring them out, bring them out. I always encourage students not to be afraid. It is your God-given right, your inalienable right, to have the same level of respect that is due any citizen of this country. And unfortunately, there are some people who do not understand that not even do not understand, but some people who don't care that what they say can be harmful. I am proud of the progress that is being made now that we have a new mix in our administration to try and educate our educators about how to have proper language and lessons with students. But essentially what I would say is do exactly like some of the students did this summer and bring them out, bring them out.
What is one piece of advice you would give to a fellow Black student struggling to fit in?
Find your Black counterparts and just converse with them as well. As your freshman year, join something like peer mentors, or that really helped me.
Honestly, I would say just do yourself. It will come naturally. Don't force anything, because if you're gonna chase it, the more everything's gonna push away. So just let it come to you. Let things attract to you, and good things will happen.
I would say to find a group of people that you really connect with. Definitely don't join clubs or do things that you're uncomfortable doing just to make, not necessarily to make friends, but don't try to fit in. More so, just try to find a group of people that you'll feel comfortable being friends with. And usually if you find a group of people, whether it's small, they're usually going to be there for you for a really long time. I know the friends I've made, even though it's not really that much here at Maggie, most of them are Black, but I do know that I will be friends with them for a really long time.
Make Black friends, dude. It's nice to have super big friend groups of a bunch of other students, but make Black friends. Make sure you have Black friends. And I think it'll be easier for freshmen, sophomores, because there's so many of them, and there's a lot more Black students in the lower classes than the upperclassmen. So that's my advice to you, especially if you're planning on going to a PWI after Maggie Walker. Make Black friends, because it's really gonna be the thing that gets you through.
One, I'm very proud of you for being brave enough to take on this project. for being brave enough to take on this assignment, because it's important that you make the sound of students and teachers visible and audible here, that you show your perspective, never stop reaching, never stop advocating for yourself or for other people. You are excellent. I want every student to know that they are excellent, despite where they're from, what they look like, their sexual orientation, their religious background, to rise to the level that excellence demands of them. And don't allow what someone says to you or about you, and it's easier said than done, to keep you from being as great as you are. One of the things that I always tell my students every day is to go be great on purpose, because purpose echoes and it calls for you. It calls for you from a child all the way up through adulthood. Heed the call of your purpose. Even if you're feeling pain, even if you're feeling like you are being ostracized, if you choose, and you and your family choose to stay the course, it is a far more exceeding weight of glory that awaits you on the other end of that pain. And that glory will pale in comparison to anything that you have had to endure. You have paved a way for someone else's journey to be easier. You have blazed the trail, and I pray that you have burned down every tree in your way so that the path can be clearer for someone else. And so this is me giving a clarion call to you, not just as a person, but to every student, every parent, every educator, to rise to the level of your best self so that we can be the best, not only for our students, but for the community that we serve.